I am so incredibly honored today to have Christina Rasmussen on as my guest. Christina, thank you so much for being on. Christina is the founder of Second First, and she has just written this amazing book that she is in the process of launching, also called Second First. And you are a author, speaker, coach, and have reached thousands and thousands of people. And I know that right now you are in complete flow, my friend, because what you are bringing to the world is inspiring me, and I know so many other people. So thank you for your work, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm having so much fun already. Thank you so much for taking the time to have this interview with me, and I'm really excited to share everything with you.
Yay. So one of the things that is important to me and what I do with InspiredTV, and so much about the reason why your work speaks to me so much, is that, you know, so many times we can look at our stories and we can see that our stories can eventually lead us to our purpose and what we feel called to do. And I always know that there's usually some pivotal experience or transformational experience that happens. And I'm curious if you would share what yours was.
I was living this amazing life with my two little kids and babies. Actually, they were 9 months old and nearly 3 years old, with my husband in California at the time. And I was young and innocent and really thought life was going to continue like this, but it didn't. Everything changed, and he was diagnosed with colon cancer, and I remember the day very clearly. It's been many years now. That was in 2003, actually, when it happened, when he was diagnosed. And I remember wanting to throw up. And I am very, very honest and open about this. And I didn't sleep for days. I held a brown bag around my mouth every night to breathe in and out, because I couldn't breathe anymore. And my life changed that day forever. I never got it back. I never got that Christina back. I got someone else back. But that changed everything. Everything. And so many things happened since then. But that was a very life-changing experience for me. Actually, I died when he died completely, and I didn't know it.
Yeah, I always say to people that there's, that space in between two shores. And that usually when we have a really life-changing, or we go through a period of darkness or a period of pain, that we're sort of in between those two shores, that we're no longer are the person we were, and we still don't know who the person we will become. And I'm curious for you, what was it like being in between those two shores for you? How did you manage? How did you cope? How did you deal with all that?
And that's a great question, because the way I describe it is the waiting room, the place in between two lives, the life we left behind and the life we're yet to have. And people don't understand that they're in a gap, in a space between two worlds. And the problem with that is that nobody knows that's where they are. They think that's their next life. They think that, okay, this happened, and now I'm about to step into this new life. But they're not even imprisoned, but they're in this world that they think is their second life, and it isn't. So for me, when he died, when something terrible happens, and it's not death for us, we actually get to keep our body, but we have died inside. So I didn't know I was dead. I'm only 3.5 years old, by the way. And I say that all the time. I didn't know I was dead for years. I went back to school. I went and got an amazing corporate job. I was a single mother with two little kids. I was working around the clock trying to make everything work out for my kids. But I wasn't living. I was suffering, I was in pain, and I was really keeping it all inside and living and working in a world that doesn't want to hear about a single mother who's a widow and doesn't have any support. Is very harsh and very cruel. This is a cruel world out there, I have to tell you, because I had to be as good as everyone else. I had to produce as much as everyone else, and I had to to work as hard as everyone else, and nobody gives you a break. Nobody. So you're in this state of stress and panic and grief and fear, and you're there for a long time, and you have no way out. None. And you don't even know it. You don't know that you're in this place. There's millions of people in that place, by the way.
Yes.
That's what this book is going to find. Yes, millions, maybe a billion. I mean, people exit one life and they won't enter the other.
Yes.
And they stay. I have had people, when I describe the waiting room and the two lives, and I've written about this millions of times, people say, that's me, that's where I am. And when they recognize it, that's the first step, that's the first sign of life. That's when they can do something about it. When they don't know they're in between two lives, there's nothing they can do. And I want to say something that people come to me and say, well, I haven't experienced a loss like yours. And I want to say something very important. This book is not about a loss through death. Right. This is for you if you've been abandoned, rejected, abused, isolated, divorced, brokenhearted, and you are stuck and you don't even know it, and you don't know why. The reentry process is for everyone like that. And it's mostly, I don't know if you have not had any of the things I just mentioned in your life, please call me. I want to know your secret. I really do.
Well, and as you know, I'm a psychotherapist and a coach, and I deal with pain on a daily basis. And, I have built an enormous amount of reverence for pain, because I believe that it's that place between those two shores where the most growth happens. And like you said, I think it's having the awareness and the consciousness to be able to be in that space. And unfortunately, I think that so many people get the message that you got to get to the other shore real fast, that you got to swim hard and you got to get to the other shore real fast. And sometimes I think we miss really what we're meant to see, feel, and hear in that space. What would you say for people who feel like they just want to avoid or run and get away from that space?
So I actually, people say to me, is this book for me? Is this book for me? This book is actually for the people who have been there too long. Right. It's not for the people who want to stay there. Right. So I just want to make that clear. And it's for the people who have been stuck in a place that they think that's where they're supposed to be. They think that's so people get out of one relationship, get into another, because that's what they think they should be doing, and that place is still the gap. Right. Because that's not the life they really should be having. So for the people who are stuck, for the people who need to find their way out of there and re-enter, that's why my whole process is called re-entry. This is for the people who have been in there for a long time, didn't know they were in there. They are subconsciously asleep. They're in an infinite loop of loss. So their thoughts and their patterns and their brain maps are repeating the same loss over and over again. And their identity is wrapped around that loss. And they're living their life through that filter. This is the book for the people who need to actually exit that place of routine, habitual grief and enter a fully passionate living life. And the way I like to do this is not by jumping off the cliff or leaping out, thinking that there's going to be someone to catch you. It's about taking very small steps out of the waiting room and into life. And I call it plug-ins. So 5%, 3%, 2%. Change your hair color. Yeah. Paint your walls. Buy a new dress for a possible date without going on the date. Like, these are the really small things to get you out of that in-between space. So this is not for people who need to stay there, and I know those people. This is for people who want to get out. Right. Right.
And, one of the reasons why I think you are such a way shower in this field, and really I commend you for doing this work, because it is not easy. It is not easy to put this out there. It's not easy to be heard in this realm. A lot of people don't want to talk about pain. They don't want to deal with pain. So I'm curious, how do you see us being able to remove the stigma, being able to remove the walls and the blocks that we have about talking about this kind of stuff?
At the back of my book, actually right here it says raising the bar of life after loss. And that is my mission, is to raise the bar of life after loss. It is to open the conversations. It's to remove the stigma, as you said. I want to make it cool to talk about this.
Yes.
And I know I'm not one of those folks that are out there talking about, I don't know, I will teach you how to get rich, or, all those different things. And I really believe that there's purpose for those folks.
Yep.
And I think that we think that's where happiness lives. But we can't be taught to be abundant if we are not dealing with what's happened to our lives, if we have to remove the loss without really going through it. And when people have started reading my book, and one of the things they're telling me is that the first chapter or two is really hard, and it's bringing things back to them, right? And I had to put them through their grief so we can actually go and re-enter. I cannot do this pretending that it didn't happen and going to the re-entry process without walking through those steps. So it is important to do it and to go through it, and the world needs to get ready for millions of people talking about what's happening to them.
Yes.
And talking about it in a very unique way. It's not wrapping themselves around the loss more and more and more. It's not about going into a trance and talking about what happened to them and staying in the past. It's talking about their loss in the present moment, not through their past experience. But this is what happened to me. I have changed through this. This is what I've experienced. And this is how I'm going to use my life to move forward. I believe creativity, finding a purpose, and giving to the world and creating compassion in our life is very healing.
So how did you know after the loss of your husband that this was to be your purpose, that this is what your calling was?
I don't know if you know this, and I think you do actually. I was a grief therapist before my husband died.
Yes, you did tell me that.
Yes, and I had chosen that profession prior to experiencing grief personally. I had gone through a devastating breakup with a boyfriend in my early 20s, and I felt so much pain. And I said to myself, wow, imagine, how do you get people to get rid of the pain? I said, how do you do that? And I wanted to find out, so I did my master's thesis in the stages of bereavement, and I became a grief therapist, but I didn't really understand it until I experienced losing a baby and then losing my husband. By the age of 34, I had been through pretty much, not everything, I think there's a lot of other losses too, but I went through a lot and realized that, I ran away at first. I didn't want to do it. After I experienced I ran away. I went to the corporate world. I was suffering too much to help anyone else.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're talking, what I'm feeling is that, those experiences were preparing you to be able to do what you're doing now, and not only just to do it, but to stand in it fully. Because I think that one of the reasons why so many of us self-sabotage is because we're not prepared to stand fully in our experience. And all of those things were preparing you. But what took it from being a grief therapist to now this huge message that you want to bring to the world? And this is big. I mean, big. This isn't just about one-on-one therapy or sitting in an office. This is really bringing it into a whole new level, a new forum. So how did you get from that to this?
I realized that what the world gave to me after my loss was not good enough. And people really wanted to help me. It wasn't that they didn't want to. They wanted to help me, and they wanted to be supportive. But the only thing that was offered to me was listening, and that's a good thing. But then after people listened and listened, there was nothing else.
Right.
There was no steps, nothing. And I also felt that the world didn't know how to talk about grief. The words they used were so depressive. I mean, I was bereaved. I don't like the word bereavement.
Right.
I was 34 years old and I was a bereaved or a widow. I don't like the word widow. And I'm so sorry to say this, to be honest with you, but I really don't. I'm a life starter. I'm a person that had my life interrupted completely and I had to start over. So I changed the words we used and replaced them with words that have hope and meaning and transformation. And I resurrected myself. It's about resurrection of the soul, of the brain, waking it up. It has nothing to do. I fully support Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the all the different phases we go through, the anger, they're all true. And it's wonderful to know. But then what?
Right.
Then what? So the reentry came to me 3 years ago when I really felt that I needed to articulate my own steps that I took by myself to come out of that terrible place and to help others. And I started using the reentry, and the results were spectacular. And it is a little bit of a crazy process, and I use a lot of metaphors, and I use the brain science, and I have created such a mechanism within us that we can use this to find the next life.
Right.
To get out of the maze of the grief and loss and find ourselves living again. Because life is for the living. Life is for creating and evolving. And I always say grief is an inhuman experience taking place in a human body. And what happens next is evolutionary.
Yes. Yeah, and listening to you, I'm just sitting here thinking, one of the things that's so important to me, what we were talking about before, is removing this stigma, because pain is universal. It is something that we all experience. And like you said, whether it's loss of any kind, it doesn't necessarily just have to be death, but loss is loss. And I think that with everything that's been going on now in the world, it is time now for us to be able to put words to this. And also, I always say that we're born in relationship, we're wounded in relationship, and we heal in relationship. And one of the things that you are doing, which I think is amazing, is allowing people to really understand that they're not alone in their experience, and that we do need a support system, and we do need a new paradigm in order to be able to move through this and not stay stuck. So what would you say about the importance of having a support system through this?
Oh my gosh, this is so important. And that's why I'm creating a nonprofit. So there is an online support system. I think supporting each other through this journey is hugely important. Right. I have seen people heal so much faster and in a more healthy way because they've had 5 or 6 people around them to take the journey with them. Not just anyone, actually, people who have not experienced loss actually are the wrong people. I'm so sorry to say this.
I agree with you, by the way.
I know. People who are like, I really don't know what you're going through, but I'm here if you need something.
Right.
Bye. That's the wrong thing to say.
Right.
And I think having people who have gone through the same thing and have had similar experiences, taking steps together towards their new life, is so amazing to experience. And we have a private book club group. There's 210 or 20 people right now in there, and everyone's waiting for the book to arrive. So we'll take the steps together, and people are talking to each other in there, and they're sharing each other's stories, and there's healing already.
Yes.
Before we even begin to read the book, because they have found each other. It's like lost souls connecting through their divine experiences.
Right. And it's sort of like I see you as the thread, that's bringing...
So nice.
No, but it's true, that's bringing these... Because in many other forums, these people would never connect or never come together. And so there needs to be that thread, and then almost it's like... you can even begin to just sort of witness, the healing that's taking place. And I think that that's huge. What would you say for people who are going to read your book, because I think many, many, many people will, what would you say in like 2 or 3 sentences, what is the overall arching message that you really want people to hear and know that is written in this book?
The book gets better. People started and they think it's amazing, but this book gets better as you go forward. And the number one thing that I would say is that take the steps, do the exercises, access your thriver. I talk about the thriver. I talk about the survivor part of us that keeps us in this habitual fear and pattern of loss. We learn to make friends with the survivor and make sure that we are in charge and in control of our thoughts. And access your watcher. There's a part of you inside. I mean, I'm using all these words. The people who read the book will go into a cult of some sort, and they will actually experience. They will be able to talk to each other because they have read the book. Because I'm using new terminology, new words to describe these things. Read the book once or twice. Read the book. Take it with you. The one thing that will take place in your life once you read the book and do the work is that you will start creating an upward spiral, an upward momentum. And when you start taking small steps, other steps open up, other doors open. And the one thing that I have been told by many, many people who have done my reentry process in the book is that they have been blown away. I call them miracle-like experiences because I've experienced them and people have experienced them. Your brain will start to see the life that you do want and will go after it instead of the life that you don't want.
Right.
Because we're so used to being in the gap and thinking about all the things we wish we didn't have. Mm-hmm. And this book will literally retrain your brain to look for life instead of loss. And I'm blown away by the people who have already read it and shared it and experienced it. And I can't wait for everyone to experience this magnificence and create their own launch pad and remove guilt. Guilt is bigger than grief.
Yes.
Guilt and shame. And Brunette talks about that even more, right? And guilt. But guilt. The first time I laughed out loud for the first time, I covered my mouth. I went like this. Because I was ashamed to laugh.
Right.
Or the guilt and divorce. I want to talk just 1 second about divorce.
Yes.
People who have gone through a divorce or a really terrible breakup feel that grief, when you lose someone through death, is harder, or it requires more respect. I disagree. Actually, divorce is really tough because the person is dead for you but alive for everyone else.
Yes.
And it's so hard and complicated to heal this kind of loss. So I recommend this book, especially for divorced individuals who are stuck because of shame, guilt, loss of identity, loss of confidence. They don't see themselves as beautiful anymore. There's so many things that are going in. They're the ones who get stuck in the gap even more for many, many years.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with divorced people who have said to me, I almost feel it would be easier if he had died. Or she had
I've heard that
died.
a million times, yes.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that.
And I think, and I hear that, and I feel them. But I think the reason why they have to say this is because there's more respect for my husband dying than my husband leaving me, right? So I want to bring back respect of grief through a divorce, because the world needs to know that invisible losses are much harder to heal and re-enter. Mm-hmm. There's so many invisible losses in this world, and that's why it's like, no, I haven't lost anyone. I'm like, really? Yes, you have, sweetheart. And that's why you're stuck. You have lost many things, many experiences, and many people in your life.
Including themselves, losing themselves.
This is the biggest loss.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes. The biggest loss of all, when you lose a relationship with someone who saw you in a certain way, you also lose yourself. And re-entry is fundamental.
Right. And just the last thing I want to say on that is there's so many people who have shared with me that there's a loss of an identity that they've spent years creating and building, or loss of a dream.
Yes.
And I think that is really huge too, because it is almost about, like you said, recreating, something, or restarting, because it isn't the same as it was, but it could be better.
Yes.
And that's...
I always say this, the dream that was, there was a dream that you have that can ever be, you have to dream a new dream. You can't just wait for that dream to happen because it's not happening. We have to change the dream. And I say another thing that, especially for the people who have gone through terrible, terrible, terrible things, huge tragedies. I have emails from people who have gone through things that you think, really? How could it be possible for one person to experience all these losses? Especially for those people. I think they're superhuman. They're superheroes. They can do the impossible because they've been through the unthinkable.
Yes.
They have powers and superpowers that they're not even activating.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of my teachers, Ianla Van Zant, used to say to me that the greatest students get the most difficult lessons.
Oh my God! Yes.
And when you said that, it is. I mean, seriously. I mean, for the people who have been through tragedy or loss, after loss. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that takes a very special soul, a very special soul.
And this, and either there's two choices for this soul for their lifetime here. One is to be taken by this and stay in that gap and keep repeating the same pattern, or literally find a portal. And I talk about the portals, and the portals to the next life actually arrive through very weird, small little things, experiences that we have. And I always tell the story of the mailman that used to pass by my house and not deliver my cards, right? And I went after him. I chased him down 4 blocks in the middle of the snow in Boston, right? And caught up with him and demanded my Christmas cards. And that experience and that choice for me to run like a crazy woman down the street to find them changed my life. That's what re-entered me for the first time. So anyone who's listening to this, look for your portals. Look for the little things in life that you're not getting and you don't want to go try to get. Go get them. These are the little things that will actually open the locked door inside the waiting room.
Right. So, because I think so many people need to hear you, see you, read this amazing book, how can everybody get in touch with you? What would they do?
So my website is either my name. You can actually do ChristinaRasmussen.com, or you can do secondthirsts.com in words, secondthirsts.com, or you can go on Amazon and put Second Thirsts, and the book will come up, Barnes & Noble, everywhere. We are running out of books, and I'm very excited to share this with you, but if you do want to have a book soon, go order it. Make sure that you grab it, because they are flying really fast. And come and find me on Facebook as well. We have close to 100,000 people, amazing souls that I'm interacting with every single day. Just put Second Firsts again on Facebook, and it will land you on my page.
Well, I want to say I am in such gratitude for you doing this and being the conduit for this work, because this is not easy work to put out there and to be sort of at the forefront of, because I know that it is groundbreaking. It really truly is groundbreaking. So I thank you for that. And I want to say that here is to dreaming new dreams.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I want to thank you for your work and for being brave to do it, and for having done it for so many years. And we need messengers like you. I'm not a writer, I'm a messenger. You're a messenger. So the more of us group together